All right, you're live at CBA with our fencing workout with Coach Tyler tonight.
Well, hello. Yeah, I kind of lost track of time there for a second. But while I'm getting my shoes tied, we can talk about what's on the menu for today. I'm putting on my good shoes because we're going to be doing some fencing flèches. So we're going to practice doing some explosive movements to hit. And it's a great thing that you just can't practice enough. And it's a great time to work on that kind of stuff. If you got a little bit of space out in the yard or if you go to the park, you can work on this. So I'm going to show you how and give you a couple different ways to practice it until you get to where you want to be. So a couple things you'll want to probably grab today if you got them. So you're going to want to grab a weapon if you got a weapon. And to practice fleshing, I like sometimes to teach it out of a chair. So you'll want to grab some kind of chair. It could be a stool, just anything you can sit, kind of perch on. So it doesn't have to be a special kind of chair. Honestly, you could go from the edge of the couch outwards if you wanted, as long as you have a sufficient amount of space to do that. Okay, so on that note, we're going to get started with our cardio, and then we'll move on to our multiplanar stuff. So this week, that's been kind of the theme. Those of you who caught the Tuesday stream and also watched Sam's stream on Wednesday, Sam was doing some multiplanar footwork along with his stream. So the attention to lunge and back again, that's a multiplanar movement. Like I said on Tuesday, fencing is full of multiplanar movements. The only difference between fencing and some other martial arts is that those multiplanar movements only move in one plane. Whereas, let's say if you're a HEMA fighter, you have the standard forward and backwards. You have movements in the frontal plane, and then you also have transverse movements where you're pivoting side to side. There's a little bit of transverse movement in fencing, but that's mostly relegated to doing like esquive for the counterattack in foil and in weapon. But all that being said, practicing transverse movements is really, really important for us because our feet don't point the same way while we fence. So a lot of the transverse stability that you need, so like pivoting into something, that's super important. So we practice all that stuff. So transverse, frontal plane stuff, all that. It's good for you. Okay, we're getting down to the last minute of our cardio. So if you already grabbed all the things you've got, you want to maybe turn the heat up a little bit. But all of our warm-up is going to be relatively active. So if you miss the first minute or two of cardio, don't worry. You'll have plenty of chances to get your heart rate up during the exercise today. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I highly recommend, or if you're watching it on Instagram TV, either one, after, go back and watch my Tuesday stream. So you can see at least the first chunk of my Tuesday stream from this week, because then you can look at some of the other multiplanar movements that we did there. We got a little lost in it, but it was a good time. This week, we're going to be building on that. But that's okay. If you missed it and you're here now, don't worry. You can still join us. And on that note, it's time for us to do our multiplanar hops. So quick refresh for those of you who missed on Tuesday. A multiplanar movement is just where you are going from one place to another. So we're going to do that with hops. And so a multiplanar hop, you're going to start with one leg up, one leg down, and you're going to jump and land with the other leg up. And so you can do this forwards, you can do this side, you can do this pivot. We're going to go forwards to begin with. So I'm going to set the timer down to, we'll do like a minute of each. So we'll start right leg up, left leg down, and hop forward. And then for fun, you can also go backward and then switch your feet and then do the same thing. So you go forward and back. Switch your feet, forward, back, oops, and then switch your feet. And this can be a good coordination exercise if you take the speed up. You can go forward, back, switch, forward, back, oops, back. So you go forward, back, switch, forward, back, switch, oops. All right, anyways, we'll go slow. So find your balance, forward, back, switch, forward, back, switch, forward, back, switch. Okay, cool. Now we're going to do transverse, and so what that means is you're going to turn into the movement 90 degrees. So I'll start off from my right side first, pivoting in, and we'll switch sides and do it the other way. So we'll go there and back again, just like the Hobbit.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
So we're going to go leg up, and whatever direction you're going to turn, you want that leg up. So you're going to turn in and turn back. And then you can do the other side. Or if you want, you can stick to the same side. Do a couple. So go in and back. And then switch. So in, back. I'm going to do a couple on each side. In, back, in. You really can drive. Notice that I'm, boom, really driving that knee. Ah, ah, ah. So I'm not letting my leg lazily swing around. I'm really pushing. Ah, 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 ah. Good. Okay, so now we're going to do some multiplanar lunges. This is the second piece of the puzzle that we're working on here. The third thing is a combination. So we'll need the hops and we'll need the lunges to do the third thing. So we're going to start with lunges forward. And again, multiplanar lunge, you're just going to go there and back. So we're going to start with doing it forwards. So in the same direction that we're facing. So we're going to go in and back. And you can switch feet like I'm doing, or you can stick with the same side if you'd like. As fencers, we typically work one side a little more than the other, so it can be good to make sure you're being even. You don't just work on your main side all the time. When you do any kind of specialized technique, like in a sport, that's going to happen. I mean, you can imagine someone who plays golf, or someone who does archery, or something where it's highly specialized to one side of the body, playing baseball, you name it, you're going to see development that's not symmetrical with those athletes. And that's okay. It's just athletes have to take care to make sure that both sides of their body have at least a minimum level of fitness to keep them healthy and injury-free as possible. Okay, so we're going to do our transverse lunge, so that multiplanar lunge. So we're going to start off to the side, just like we were before. We're going to turn into the movement and then come back. So I'm going to pivot, so I'm going to start this leg up, just like before. I'm going to pivot the ball of my foot on the back leg, so turn and step, and I go down. You don't need to start with your leg way up in the air. You can do it while you're reaching. So having the leg super high is not necessary to do the movement. So you start from the side, pivot, and step. The only thing that's necessary is that you make the pivot with your foot off the floor. That's the important part. So foot is off the floor, pivot, and step. All right, we'll do the other side a little bit. So we go lift, pivot, and step. Good. So start from the side, lift, pivot, step. Good. And smoother you can make that transition, the better. So if you can make that transition nice and smooth. Notice I'm not saying fast, I'm saying smooth. Nice and smooth on that transition. That's what we want. So smooth transition into the position. Good. Do a couple more on this side. And one more. And time. Okay, so now this is where things get complicated. Remember when you did your first plyometric ladder exercise and how awkward that felt? This will feel like that, but it won't feel like that forever. So we're going to start nice and slow, and then we're going to work our way through. So first, for our combination, we're going to do a hop that is transverse, and then we're going to lunge. So that means that we are going to turn while we hop. So let's do it real slow. I'm going to start with my dominant leg for the turn. So this is my right leg, so I'm going to turn onto my right leg. You can do it with your left leg. It's up to you. So start with the leg up, do the hop, and then step down. So then I'll do it on the other side. So leg up, so hop, step. Good. Now I'm going to back up just a little bit so it can be a little more energetic with that turning step. So here I am, I've got the leg, and we go, good. And then now I'm ready to do the other side. So I go up, I go turn, and step. Good. Oh, I did it opposite, I drove. Not me. Let's start from this side again. So here. Oh, I did it right.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, cool. See? All right. Bah, bah. Whew. It was lots of fun. So we go up, turn, and step. Start from this side. Leg up, turn, and step. Leg up, turn, and step. Now, it's super important while you're doing this, when you do this turn, that you are stabilizing right here. It's really tempting to kind of like land like this and then correct while your foot's on the floor. It's really important that you land your foot facing the direction you're going. So that's the way your body's going to be moving. That's where your foot has to be. So if that's not comfortable, go slow. Okay, so now we're going to do the same order for transverse to forwards, but this time we're going to do a transverse lunge, and we're going to do a forward hop right after the lunge. So here's what that looks like slowly. I'll start this side here. So I'm turning into the lunge. So I've got my right leg up. So I'm going to go turn, step, and then from here, I'm going to drive this knee all the way. If you try and do it the other way, you're going to have a bad time. So if I try and go to here and then hop, you can do that. So you can go here, but that's more advanced to do that lunge to transition.
Jumping front kick, Tyler.
Pretty much. So you can do that, but I'm choosing to do the more intermediate one, where you just swing the leg through, do your hop, land on the same foot. Okay, let's begin. This will make tons of sense once we get into our fleshing part. So we're coming down on that leg, push. And doing it on the other side, just so we're nice and symmetrical. All right. Right leg, turn, step, bah. And left leg, turn, step, bah. Right leg, turn, step, bah. And left leg, turn, step, bah. Good. One more. Turn, bah. Okay. Great. We did it. Tons of fun. If you're watching this later, you can go back through and do this longer. We did it only about a minute, but which might already have your legs hurting. But if they're not, do it some more. It's good for you. But I want to save myself because we got a lot of pushing to do today. All right, so we're going to do our standing straddle stretch for our kind of cool down stretch before we get into our footwork. So that means we're going to go wide, like you're going to go down and pick up a weight for a deadlift, like a sumo deadlift or something, or if you're on your way down for a to do the split. So you're going to go here, and I'll turn you to the side so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm here, not too wide, and you'll notice that as I go down, my hips go back. So my hips go back a proportionate amount to my front going forward. So the center of my body ends up centered in my feet. See, center of gravity is like right here, boom, it's ending up right in the middle. Lower back is as straight as I can make it. I'm not letting my lower back arch. I want that to be straight here. And if you're on a dusty floor like me, you might need to call upon some more grip, wipe the dust off.
Or just go into the splits, Tyler.
Yeah. Next time.
Next time.
Splits and back foot next time, right?
You heard it here, everyone. Hold him to it.
Yeah.
Splits and black foot.
I'm putting no timeline on that. That's in phase 5 of my personal fitness journey. We're in phase 2 right now. So from here, the key is that I'm trying to get a stretch in my hamstrings, and I can go to one side or the other side if I want. So if I feel like I need to stretch a little bit on this side, I can do that. Stretch a little on this side, I can do that. And then come up. All right, time. So now we are going to be doing some footwork. So I've got 5 things planned for footwork. The first 2 we're going to do short because they're going to integrate into the last 2 things. But I do want to just refresh our memory. And then a quick note, if you saw the thing on our feed earlier, if you're a saber fencer, you are going to substitute a long lunge or a leap lunge for the Flèche examples we're going to show you later, so you don't have to feel super left out. There are things you can do. But we are going to focus on that a lot today. Okay, so first up, bouncing. So this stream goes out specifically to the FA fencers.
Yay!
Oh yeah. Don't think we forgot about you. Bouncing and doing flèches is really critical to being able to operate in epic. I rank bouncing and fleshing as something that is like intermediate efficiency or effectiveness in foil. And well, at the moment you can't flesh and saber. And a lot of the FIE level testing for that kind of got screwed up by COVID. So, I mean, they were going to try and test it this season, but that didn't work out. So, we'll see how that goes. But bouncing, though, Cyrus of Chaos has a great bouncing video for saber fencers. So don't count that out if you fence saber. It's a great way to control your opponent if they're a more reactive fencer and you're not super active on defense, bouncing was great because they just bleed distance. It's good. Okay, enough talking. So bouncing, the objective is to obfuscate where I'm going to go. So I've got a timer running, so I'm up on the balls of my feet, so I'm not really letting my heels slam into the floor. I might touch them on the floor, but I'm mostly generating this with my calves and my quads. So here and here. And you'll notice quads are on this side of the leg, calves are on this side of the leg. So those two things oppose each other, and it can create a seesawing movement using the knee as a fulcrum, and that generates the bounce. Cool.
Yay, physics!
Yeah, everybody loves physics. Why did I set this for 2 minutes?
Tyler loves bouncing.
Yeah. So if that's something that you are getting the hang of, try bouncing forwards and backwards. So we've got another minute to go. So bounce it in and out. So you can imagine if you got time, or not time, you got time, so here. You got space, you can bounce to take space, or you can bounce to give space, or you can bounce to kind of preserve your position without standing still. So keep that in mind. If you ever want to stop moving backwards, but you're not prepared to push in, this is a great way to do that. Or you can just move in and out and kind of hover in distance, or fluctuate an inch or two in distance without giving up your movement.
The fencer shuffle.
Right. This is basically saying, this holds your spot. So it's saying, well, I'm not going to just stand there. So if I just stop, like the timer tells me to do, if I just stop, and I stand there and I just stare at my opponent, I mean, maybe that'll get in their head, maybe, but you can't count on your opponent being intimidated by you in an unproven scenario. I mean, if you hit them a whole bunch, then yeah, they're going to feel that way. But you're several points up, so it doesn't matter. You're already winning that bout at that point, right? So if it's close, they're going to disrespect that if you just stand there, unless they're just weaker than you, in which case you're going to win that bout. So again, you can see how this process goes. If it's going to be a hard fight, that won't work. And if it's not going to be a hard fight, why are you doing back fencing? All right, so on the easier mode, we're going to do advances and retreats. So same idea, but you can tell already, this is not nearly as active as bouncing when it comes to preserving a certain spot on the string. Like, this is a good way, if your opponent's not pushing you super hard and you can just sit here doing this, that's cool. So in épée, you'll see good fencers switch between these two things pretty frequently. Like, they'll do some advancing and retreating. If there's not a lot of pressure, they might push in a little bit, or they might pull back a little bit to try and influence their opponent to do one or the other thing. But when they feel like they have to put the heat on a little bit, or if they need to present a more active resistance to their opponent pushing into their space, they're going to switch to doing some bouncing instead of just treading water like this. Interesting. So, all the same, anything that applies in épée broadly applies in foil and saber on counteroffense pretty universally as well, as far as the distance management goes. So, yeah, I had to learn pretty quickly that there's a lot of great stuff that épée fencers do that foil and saber fencers don't on counteroffense. And it makes you weaker when you don't do those things. If you only focus on doing offense, which admittedly is the best thing, But if that's all you know, you got somebody who's stronger on offense, they always take the center, they're always pushing you back. Now what do you do? Just throw the bout? I wouldn't want to. So you learn. All right. So that's enough talk. It's time to do our first fleshing action. Whew. So excited. I'm going to grab my chair. You do the same. Or like I said, if you have no chair, a stool, an ottoman, the edge of a couch, whatever. It'll work. So you're going to want to be in the edge of the chair best you can. So if you do orchestra or band, and you're accustomed to sitting on the very edge of your chair anyways, that's great. If you've never done this before, it's not too bad. You just sit in the chair and scoot forward. Done. Okay. I'm going to set my timer just so I know how long I've been talking, so we don't go way over time. All right, so first is chair to flesh. The closer to the edge of the chair, the better, because you want to really not be super stable on the edge of this chair here. You don't want to have to like get up out of the chair to do the thing. You want to be on your way out of the chair when you do this. So, yeah, perfect. So to do a flesh from this position, this chair is actually a little shorter than maybe I'd choose, but it's what I got here. The fleshing movement comes out of your front leg. So your back leg is gonna help you position yourself over your front leg, but at the end of the day, your front leg's doing the work. And so you'll see a similarity to our lunge that we were doing earlier. You lunge to hop. Wow, look at that!
What?
It's the exact same thing. It's a transverse lunge into a hopping movement. Wow, amazing. Okay, so, anyways, gotta blow mine once a day on the street. So, we're gonna pivot onto our front foot here. So all my weight is here on the front foot. In fact, you can leave your leg if you'd like, or you can leave it in a more on guard position. But this is the leg that's doing the work. So I've got my foot under my knee. Under normal circumstances, you want it in front of the knee, but when we're going to do a driving movement, we are turning into a sprinter. We are no longer a fencer for a brief moment. So you want to be in a sprinting geometry with our leg, not a fencing geometry. So I'm here, my leg is a coiled spring. I'm going to push out right there. So I'm trying to do this real slow so you can kind of see what's going on. So this is a spring. You can see there's this lever here, foot and ankle against the knee and thigh. So I have two different levers I'm going to be using to extend. I'm going to push here, and I'm going to push here. And those things together, along with my hip hinging, my hip is closed, and all three, so I guess ankle, knee, and hip, all three of those are going to open as I go into the flesh. Boom. You can see how my leg was fully extended behind me. I'll do it the other way so you can see what's going on from the dominant leg side here. So, in the position, everything goes over my foot. So, bent, bent, bent. Everything straightens out through the movement. So, on your own time now, so I'm going to give you maybe like a minute or so to practice making this smoother and more consistent as we go. So you're going to go onto the foot, drop. And the torso is going to remain angled until you hit your opponent. And if you're not sure what it should look like, watch some game footage on YouTube. Like go on there and watch some bouts. There's good fleshing compilations that you can watch people doing this. There's several different ways to execute. It's not just one way, but they all have the same general outcome. So you're not crossing the finish line standing up here. Going up, over, You'll notice I'm driving my hand out right away. It's almost as if someone's pulling me by the arm out of this chair. So you can imagine someone's grabbing hold of my wrist, pulling me, and right up until I lose my balance, I'm going to resist doing the Flèche. As soon as I'm off balance and I push, I'm going to get a lot of speed. So here I'm extended. You should feel like you have to kind of catch yourself at the end because you're off balance. Makes sense. Okay, one more. Try and go a little quicker. Okay, great. Good times.
I have a question for you, Tyler.
Yes.
If you're a saber fencer, are they trying to do that lunge off the chair?
Great question. Okay, so for a saber fencer here, you can try to lunge out of a chair, but yeah, so you can, it's going to be hard to get into that lunging position, but it's good practice to try and practice lunging from a negative. So this is a way to do it without lunging from down here, but sometimes you can practice a lunge from a negative position relative to your on guard. So if on guard is 0, then going lower than that is good. That's what I would call a negative position. But a chair is a good bridge for that. So the only consideration is that you have to set it up so your back leg is stable. This is not a priority if I'm doing a Flèche, but if I'm doing a lunge, I want to really make sure my back foot is on the floor. So I may have to change around where I am on the chair to make that work. But it's a good thing to practice. So that's a great question. So that's how you do that. Good news though, that was the only time we're going to need the chair thing. So if that was not working for you, there's no more chair. So all the rest of this is going to be footwork and then action. So you'll just do footwork into lunge. I guess while we're on this tangent, you should be doing the most explosive lunge that you can in the space that you have. So if you are capable of doing a leap lunge, that's what you should probably be doing. It's doing a long lunge, just like Sam talked about yesterday. Doing an explosive lunge with back foot comes with you. You can even go a step further and do a hitting advance instead of a lunge, so it looks like this. So you just have to be careful to mind your front knee through that movement. I've seen some coaches doing a really interesting hybrid recovery, like they do a really long attack and then they don't recover back necessarily. It's like pseudo hitting advance, pseudo lunge. Here's what it looks like. They'll do a big explosive lunge, they're all the way up here. You know you're not coming back to here in any reasonable amount of time. So what they do is they go half and half, just ready to parry from that position. So try that out. Okay, so time to do bounce to Flèche. So all we're going to do, we're just going to do a number of bounces, forwards and backwards. So I recommend at least 2, so that your that second bounce, your body is going to be doing a different adaptation than on the first bounce. You've already hit the floor and then bounced again. Your balance and feet are going to be doing different things than if you just bounce once and try and Flèche. So 2 minimum, 3 or 4 is fine, 5, now you're procrastinating. So 2 to 3 is good. we'll try it with forward bounces. These can be small, they don't have to be big. So we're just going to go bounce, bounce, flesh. All right, so we'll start with the forward one. So we'll go bounce, bounce, flesh. And just on that last bounce, you're going to come down here and push. So I go bounce, bounce, and flesh. Bounce. You can see, watch my body. I'm going to do everything but the flesh a couple times. You can practice it all together, but you watch. I go 1, 2. See how my body changes? So on that last one before I go, I like sit in the chair. So I go 1, 2, 3. Hit the chair, hit the opponent. Of course, make sure your feet are nice and sticky. And make lots of noise. Good. Okay, let's do some retreat or some backwards bounces while we're at it. So we'll go bounce, bounce, flesh, backwards. So we'll go bounce, bounce, flesh. You'll notice on that second bounce, I put my foot under my body just like I was when I was sitting in the chair. So I know I'm leaving. During that bounce, I'm making the decision to hit right there. And so my opponent's probably going to see that. That's just part of the deal. But the flesh is so strong in that fraction of a second while you're doing it, you're betting that they won't respond, or their response will be too weak to stop it, which is what you're looking for. So, bounce. Cool. Couple more. Back, back, hit. Woo. Back. You'll notice I'm going about 2 meters with mine. So you don't have to necessarily run a race. So once it gets to about there, I'm done. I've done the attack. I'm hitting my opponent here. So by the time my back foot's touching down, it's over. I've already hit or gotten hit. That's the gamble. So when you hear that squeak of my back foot catching the floor, the hit's already happened. So I go 1, 2, hit. Yeah, see, the hit was like significantly early. Ba, 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 da. There we go. Ba, 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 da. Ba, 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 da. Ooh, slipped a little bit. Didn't go as far. Okay, that's that. Now, we're going to move on. We're going to do advance and retreat plus bounce to flesh. So we're going to move. You can do this in place. If you don't have a ton of space, you'll do it this way. You'll go in and out. And you're going to, first, we're going to bounce the same direction. So you practice this both ways. So if I'm doing an advance, I go advance, bounce, and flesh. So advance, bounce, and flesh. No. Advance, bounce, and flesh. Or I can do bounce, my shoes outside. Or I can retreat and then bounce back and flesh. I'll show you what that looks like right here. So you'll go retreat, bounce, there it is, flesh. Here we go. So you go retreat, retreat, bounce, and flesh. Retreat, bounce. our time for this. So now we want to do an advance with a bounce back. And then we'll practice the other one. So you're going to go advance, bounce back, push. Do some more. Advance, bounce back, and push. This is rough. There's 3 direction changes. So go 1, 2, 3. Right. I'm doing it a little slower so you can see what I'm doing. So advance, bounce, push. So I'm not going as far. Slow. If you want to go further, you go fast. So advance. Advance. Couple more. Advance. And like I said, for the saber fencers, you want to make sure that you're doing a strong lunge out of this. So you should be going advance, really making that drop. These bouncing steps are really good in all the weapons for like pulling distance. If you're not hitting with the flesh, you may be just doing a regular pass. You go advance, bounce, and then lunge. That bounce takes almost no time, and it's a little simpler than doing like a half step. You can usually cover a little bit better distance after a bounce than after a half step, but your mileage may vary. Okay, let's practice the last one. So we go retreat, bounce, flesh. This one's a little bit easier. There's only 2 direction changes, backwards and forwards. Back. Try to advance by accident. So, retreat, bounce, flesh. Retreat, flesh. Make sure that you don't make the mistake that I made, where you go retreat. Gotta go retreat, bounce, flesh. Don't give it away during the step. You want to keep that hidden from your opponent. So you do the bouncing step. So you go retreat, bounce, step. The other benefit is if you decide on the bounce, you see something that alarms you, you go retreat, bounce. Oh, I don't like that. You can just move out. If you're coming down on the floor, thinking about doing the flesh, maybe you're a little off balance, but you haven't pushed off. You might go, nah, no, and limp back out of distance. Might save you from getting hit. All right, one more. Retreat, flesh. All right, you did it. Okay, it's a long one today. So we're going to do some games, and then we're all done for today after that. So I'm going to show you. Let's see. So we're going to go. Good. All right, so you're going to bounce in place. I'm going to give you an opening, stepping in or stepping back. So you'll have to read that, and then, so if I give you the opening while I'm stepping in, so you'll have to bounce back. If I go back, I have to bounce in when I go in. This is a tricky thing, but I think we got it. All right, so everybody's bouncing in place. And if you're just exhausted, you can step in place, but bounce in place. All right, so if I jump in, so if I step in, you're going to bounce back, and then flesh or lunge. All right, so here we are. So bounce back and flesh or lunge. So bouncing, bounce back, and flesh. Good. Okay, so now I'm going to bounce forwards. So if I move back significantly, you're going to bounce in and then drill me. So, right. Almost. All right. Sorry, there was a fly. I was hoping to get it. All right, so we're bouncing in place, bounce in, and flesh. Good. So notice when I'm giving these openings, check it out. See how I'm like drilled into my back foot. So I'm not going anywhere right away when I do something like that. I mean, it's better to be off balance on your back foot than your front foot, but only marginal. Bounce in and fletch. Good. Bounce it back and fletch. Bounce back and fletch. Bounce in and fletch. Okay, that's that. So now you are going to advance and retreat in place. So for now, we're going to do the same direction. So whatever direction you're traveling, if you're traveling forward, you're going to bounce and then flesh or lunge forwards. If you're traveling backwards, you're going to bounce back and then flesh. Or lunge. If you don't have space to flesh, fine. Just do a lunge. Don't worry about it. So that's what we're going to do first. Then we'll do a different thing. Okay, so you're advancing and retreating. Advancing and retreating. I'm advancing and retreating. What a coincidence. So now, when you sense weakness, when you see that I'm in a bad position, you can take advantage of it. When you've figured out kind of what mistake I'm going to make, and you're just waiting for me to make that mistake. If I'm stepping back and you're stepping in, that means that you're going to bounce forwards and you're going to fletch. So I'm going to make that mistake, you're just going to bounce and then go for it. Bounce, fletch, good. Or bounce, lunge, if you're tight end space. Bop, bop, good. And if I give you that going backwards, you're going to bounce back, and then you're going to come get me, either with the flesh or with the lunge. All right, so here we go. So, bounce, flesh, good. So, same direction you're traveling. Same direction. Ba, ba, good. Don't worry if it takes you a second to get back after your flesh. Don't worry about that. Just come back as soon as you can. Bounce, flesh. Good. Or bounce, lunge. All right. Bounce, flesh. Good. Okay. So now, last part, we're going to do the opposite direction. So that means you're going to bounce. If you're going forwards, you're going to bounce back and then flesh. If you're going backwards, you're going to bounce forwards and lunge or flesh, depending on your space. Cool. And we're going to put this right up on Instagram TV and YouTube right after this. So if you know that you're not in a space where you can do this right now, but you are like, oh man, in like a little bit I can go outside and do this, then don't worry, it'll be there so you can circle back to this. Practice just this last part and you have a lot of space. All right, cool. So we're still advancing and retreating. So advance, retreat, advance, retreat. Good, good. Okay, so we're doing opposite bounce. So if you're going forward, you're going to bounce it back. So bounce back and flesh. Good. Moving back, forward, backwards, forward, backwards. Good. Bounce back. Good. And then hit. Very nice. All right, so now go backwards, you can bounce forwards, right? So we go bounce forwards and flesh. Good. Retreat, advance. Retreat, advance. Bounce forward and hit. Good. Here we go. Bounce back and hit. Good. You can imagine that you're evading a counterattack or an attack when you do this type of thing. Or you can imagine that you're just taking a little extra time or you need a little extra time to penetrate through a blade action. We have to do something like this. All right, one more. All right, so retreat and bounce, hit. Okay, good. That's it for class today. Got a nice long one. I'm sure. I know my arms would be tired if I was filming for that long, so thank you for sticking with it, Anna.
Woohoo!
Very cool. Sign up for Zoom classes if you haven't. The link is in our bio. So you can go to our bio on Instagram, click on that link. If you're on YouTube, you can check out our Facebook or our Instagram for the link. There's a pinned post on Facebook, so with the link to sign up. We're gonna lock in our times this weekend. So if you have any preferences on when you want to be taking a Zoom class, you got to sign up now. Because once we set our schedule, there's a lot that goes into it. So we're going to set our schedule and try and get everybody in that at least signed up this week. So get that done if you haven't done it already. Okay, attention position. Go ahead and salute. All right, we will see you next time. Bye!